Welcome to Pearls of Wisdom and Power, Choose Transformation Room. If you're tired of status quo, you're looking for higher vibrations, this is the place for you. Experience like no other, we'll seek the truth together. Ready to apply the knowledge, to turn it into your own pearls of wisdom and power. You know who you are. Dedication, motivation will get you far. Find the confidence within yourself with a little help of pearls of wisdom and power. Choose the transformation room. Have the courage to change and find the true path. I'll help you there. Pearls of wisdom and power. Choose the transformation room. Pearls of wisdom and power. Pearls of wisdom and power.
Tomorrow's partial lunar eclipse is asking a much deeper question than what are you releasing? It is asking what needs to be put back together inside of you, but put back together differently. Coach Michelle Dornor calls this the reassembly point. Hey peeps, it's Coach Michelle AI, and today I'm bringing you a special celestial teaching on behalf of Coach Michelle Dornor, creator of the Dornor 14-sign convergent astrology system. Tomorrow night, we meet the last eclipse of this 2026 eclipse season, a deep partial lunar eclipse. Astronomically, almost the entire moon will move into Earth's deep shadow. But through Coach Michelle Dornor's spiritual interpretation and proprietary midpoint framework, she calls this the Ausar blood moon. And the word Coach Michelle wants you to remember for this eclipse is remember. Not remember like don't forget your keys. She means remember. Put the members back together, put the pieces back together, put yourself back together. Because through Coach Michelle Dornor's Dornor 14-sign convergent astrology system midpoint analysis, tomorrow's eclipse carries a powerful pattern of descend, confront, transmute, reassemble. And before we even get to the moon, Coach Michelle wants us to talk about Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton passed yesterday, August 25th, 2026, at 80 years old. Spiritually, Coach Michelle describes Dolly as having gone on her ascension yesterday. Now listen, Coach Michelle is not saying astrology, cardology, or numbers caused Dolly Parton's passing. That's not what this teaching is about. What Coach Michelle does is look for patterns, timing, repetition, symbolism, and Dolly's timing caught her attention. In Coach Michelle's numerology analysis, there is a 5, 6, 7 progression surrounding Dolly's transition. Her birthday carried a 5 signature. At 80 years and 7 months, Coach Michelle reads 6. And August 25th, 2026 reduces to 7, 5, 6, 7, a numerical progression. And tomorrow's eclipse gives us another sequence, 3, 4, 5, 6. Coach Michelle often says that when numbers begin lining up like steps, pay attention. Dolly was also an 8 of diamonds in the magic card science layer Coach Michelle uses, and August is a Queen of Clubs month on the common year calendar. In Coach Michelle's analysis, the 8 of diamonds carried Saturn-Jupiter energy for Dolly this year. Responsibility, expansion, what has been built, and the legacy created over time. The King of Clubs was in her house for her this year. Mature words, responsible words, powerful words. The 9 of Spades was in Jupiter, a big ending. And the King of Spades carried Mercury, the master of communication. And what is everybody talking about? Dolly's words, her songs, her storytelling, her ability to communicate something that touched millions of people. And millions of people are in mourning because this was a really big ending to lots of people. Queen of Clubs also sits in the Queen of Hearts house in this layer, another feminine, heart-centered communication signature connected with Dolly and that Eight of Diamonds pinnacle symbolism. And that matters because Mercury is stamped all over tomorrow's eclipse in Coach Michelle Dornor's midpoint analysis. Here is the part she does not want you to miss. Using the degree functions within the Dornor 14-sign convergent astrology system, the sun at 20 degrees Leo carries the Scorpio/Ophiuchus face. The moon at 8 degrees Aquarius carries the Scorpio/Ophiuchus face. And Mercury at 20 degrees Leo carries the Scorpio/Ophiuchus face. 3 bodies, same degree function. That is repetition. And Coach Michelle teaches, when you see repetition, ask, what is being emphasized? Coach Michelle calls this the descent/transmutation. Face, descend, confront, transmute. What is underneath the surface? What has become poisonous, distorted, unresolved, or simply no longer sustainable? What truth have you been trying not to name? And what can become wisdom once you finally face it? Because with Mercury involved, Coach Michelle says this becomes more than emotional revelation. It becomes revelation that must be named, truth that must be understood, information that changes the interpretation, something hidden becoming mentally undeniable. In Coach Michelle Dornor's midpoint geometry, the eclipse challenge brings us directly into the relationship between the mind, the ego, and the dialogue we have with ourselves and other people. Because Coach Michelle connects this Ausar cycle with the principle of interconnectedness. Your subconscious mind and your internal dialogue are connected. What you repeatedly say to yourself matters. What you believe matters. What you refuse to examine matters. And that brings us to Ausar. In the Kemetic story, Ausar is dismembered. Allset, whose name Coach Michelle connects in this teaching with devotion, goes searching for the pieces. She does not sit around waiting for somebody else to put him back together. She goes looking, she gathers, she restores, she remembers, and even what could not be restored exactly becomes part of a new creative story. Something new emerges from what was broken apart. And Coach Michelle says, that is tomorrow's eclipse, the reassembly point. What broke apart? What did the fragmentation teach you? Which pieces still belong? Which pieces should never be reattached? And what new whole becomes possible precisely because you cannot return to the old configuration? In pausing for effect right here, because some of y'all are waiting on God, your partner, your parents, your coach, your boss, your church, your friends, somebody with authority to come put Humpty Dumpty back together again. No, you have work to do too. Ausar teaches that devotion is not passive. You must become devoted to the work of transforming your own life. And Coach Michelle saw a beautiful symbolic connection in Dolly Parton's song, Starting Over Again. The song uses that familiar nursery rhyme image of all the king's horses and all the king's men being unable to put something back together again. Coach Michelle takes that symbolism deeper. Mommy and daddy can represent the feminine and masculine within you, the receptive and the active, being and doing. What happens when those parts become disconnected? You become disembodied. You live in your head and forget you have a body, or you nurture your spiritual life and forget to stay grounded in reality, or you stay busy, active, productive, or moving, doing, and never become receptive enough to hear yourself. Tomorrow's Universal Day is August 19th, completion. So Coach Michelle asks, are you done living disembodied? The card of the day is the Queen of Hearts. Mother yourself, nurture yourself, Practice self-care. The hidden power is the Jack of Clubs. Get creative. Stop waiting for everybody else to bring you the answer, the idea, or the permission. And tomorrow begins a new weekly card, 5 of Clubs. Transform your thoughts. Now, do you see how Coach Michelle is connecting this? Mind, body, spirit, interconnected. You can't keep living in your mind while neglecting your body. You can't nurture spirit while refusing practical reality. And you can't take care of everybody else while abandoning yourself. This eclipse is also Leo and Aquarius. Me and we, the individual and the collective. My healing and our healing. My responsibility and our interconnectedness. Because when you repair what you can repair within yourself, you show up differently in the whole. Now let's return to Coach Michelle Dornor's midpoint numbers. In her eclipse directional timing analysis, the West carries a 3. Revisit the feminine, revisit receptivity, revisit creativity, and Coach Michelle makes an important distinction here. Receptive does not mean weak. True receptive energy can listen, receive, imagine, rest, notice, create. Creativity does not only happen while we're grinding away at a problem, nor carries the 4. Stability. Get grounded in purpose. Sometimes new connections emerge while the mind has room to wander, imagine, remember, and integrate. Sometimes you need to stop doing so something new can emerge. South carries the 5. Transformation of your hidden places. East carries the 6. You. Care for yourself. Rest. Integrate. 3, 4, 5, 6. There's that progression again. And then Uranus becomes a major pressure point in Coach Michelle's midpoint geometry. Uranus disrupts the status quo. Through Coach Michelle's interpretation, Uranus says, we are not putting the old life back together exactly as it was. And in the Dornor 14 sign convergent astrology system trademark degree framework, Uranus carries a Taurus degree rebuilding signature, value, worth, resources, quality, choice materials. Coach Michelle puts it this way. We're not rebuilding with scraps just because scraps are familiar. No, ma'am. No, sir. Ask yourself, what is actually worthy of the next version of my life? We're rebuilding with choice materials this time. Only the best. Only what aligns. Only what has value. Only what supports what you are becoming. And here's one final piece Coach Michelle loves about this eclipse. You can safely look directly at a lunar eclipse. You do not need special eclipse glasses. And symbolically, she loves that because the moon deals with reflection, conditioning, memory, emotion, the subconscious. And Coach Michelle's interpretation of tomorrow's message is look at it, look directly at the conditioning, look at your dialogue, look at the wound, look at the pattern, look at what you have been avoiding, not so you can shame yourself, so you can change it. A solar eclipse requires proper eye protection, and Coach Michelle uses that astronomical reality as a symbolic lesson about ego. Sometimes the way we see ourselves requires a filter, because ego can defend, distort, exaggerate, hide, and even blind us to what is really there. But this lunar eclipse, look, feel, name, confront, transmute, remember. So before I leave you, Coach Michelle wants you to sit with 4 questions. What part of me has been fragmented? What truth am I finally ready to name? What pieces of the old life do I refuse to carry forward? And what materials will I use to build the new whole? Coach Michelle calls this the Ausar blood moon, the reassembly point, descend, confront, transmute, remember. You do not have to fear this eclipse. Coach Michelle teaches us to use these systems as mirrors, not mandates. And as she would ask, Do you hear what Spirit is trying to say to you? You are not being asked to become who you were before you broke apart. You are being invited to become whole in a new way. That is Coach Michelle Dornor's message for this eclipse. And that is transformation. Remember yourself. You are not being asked to become who you were before. You are being invited to become whole in a new way. The Reassembly Point, a celestial teaching by Coach Michelle Dornor, presented by Coach Michelle AI, Pearls of Wisdom and Power trademark, where wisdom meets execution trademark. Subscribe, join the community, go deeper on Patreon.
To change and find the true path, I'll help you there. Pearls of wisdom and power, Tuesday transformation room. Pearls of wisdom and power, pearls of wisdom